Because you've got an enemy who keeps you in a state of amnesia and a state of fake implanted memories. You know, every time you open your eyes, your enemy is right there in front of you telling you that he's your friend. And because you don't remember anything, you believe him. You understand? The whole country is getting their drink spiked. Everyone in that country is getting roofied. And the one who spikes your drink and the one who abuses you when you're in your numb and unconscious state is the one sitting next to you in the morning when you come to, holding your hand, your protector. Oh, it's insidious. Uncle Sam is a serial killer. The son of Sam's got nothing on Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam is the most prolific, psychopathic, diabolical, demonic mass murderer in history. You've been drinking blood your whole life, thinking it's cherry Kool-Aid. You know, the torch of the Statue of Liberty isn't a guiding light, it's an arsonist's weapon. That's what burned down villages in Vietnam. That's what set fire to Iraq and to Afghanistan. And that's what lit burning crosses all over America. You've been living in an alternative universe. So-called white Americans are like Manchurian candidates, committing or being accomplice to heinous crimes decade after decade after decade, insulated by the hypnotic state of the false version of history that they believe. That's why I've said so repeatedly, your so-called civilization has betrayed you. Your so-called civilization has duped you. They got you to sign off on policies that they told you were for the protection of liberty and justice, but were actually policies for mass murder, crimes against humanity, war crimes, savagery, and enslavement, all for the profit of others who view you as nothing but useful idiots. And now you're incriminated. Now you're accomplices. Now you're taking the fall. But you've got no one to blame but yourselves.
What's popping? Good morning, my friends, my family. Welcome to another week of RBN Live. I have a special. I call this the Revolutionary Blackout and Middle Nation Special. Me and Shahid, we've been speaking about this same theme going on in the West. I've called it the mass genocidal psychosis in the West, where we can burn children alive, starve them to death. There's reports of dozens of people starving to death in Gaza. The most horrific fate is the fate that the West opposes on their so-called enemies, while Americans sit by, watch Netflix on the beach, watching TV, as if nothing is happening. As we see a historic free speech crackdown, we see paratroopers, these authoritarian police state goons arresting people for calling for decreasing and stopping the murdering of children. So I want to introduce our guest here today because Shahid does great work on this. We have amazing geopolitical expert, intellectual, and creator of Middle Nation. Shahid Bolsen will be joining us, and also have his partner, a great writer and geopolitical analyst herself, Nisa Burdine, on as well. So I want to welcome you guys on RBN. I appreciate you guys making time. It's great talking with you guys. I want to pass it to Shahid Bolsen to get us started off today, because that was a powerful rant. I love watching your short videos. As I mentioned before, I've been discussing this wave of normalized violence by our ruling class committed against us, and just the constant wars, the constant bloodlust they have for their perceived enemies. So just to get us warmed up, I want to pass it to you, Shahid, so you can discuss what you call the violent nature of the West.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having us on. I really appreciate it. It's nice to talk to you again. I really enjoyed the last time we were able to talk. So it's really an honor to be to return to yourself and to your audience. Well, yeah, there's no denying the abnormality of the Western psyche overall, the collective psyche. Obviously, you will have individuals who are exceptions to that, but the collective. If you anthropomorphize the West generally, or America specifically, as a human being, they would be a terrible person. It would be an absolute serial killer, terrible human being. And I don't think anyone could really honestly argue that. Now, you might say that, as I say, that on the collective level, as a population, you can find exceptions to that rule, but that's kind of like saying that Jeffrey Dahmer had a nice smile, or he had some nice qualities. Maybe he was nice to cats sometimes. There are some good qualities in even the worst types of people, just as there are some good people in a collectively terrible society. But when you talk about normalizing violence, I don't even think that's the right way to put it, because they have abnormalized nonviolence and peace and tranquility and decent behavior, dealing with people in a humane way. This is the absolute baseline for them, is violence. It's the baseline. So it's not even something that they have to normalize. They have to be normalized out of that, because this is their baseline. And it's not even just against their real or perceived enemies. It's against everyone. It's the baseline. And you have to find your way out of that. And usually, almost the only way that you can ever find your way out of that is through wealth, by means of raising your status in class. And then you might be able to save yourself from the baseline of violent behavior and violent treatment that the society will mete out to you, regardless of your race, religion, color, ethnicity, and so on. If you're poor, you are eligible for violence. You're eligible for violent treatment. Now, obviously, within a class, there are going to be people who they dehumanize even more than others. But the baseline is dehumanization, and the baseline is to assign value to an individual, or value to a people, or value to a nation, value to a society, according to materialistic measurements. So the person doesn't have intrinsic value in their view. An individual person or people as a collective, people as a nation, don't have intrinsic value as human beings. Their value is dependent upon what they have, what their material status is, what level they've been able to accrue wealth, and so forth. And that will determine whether or not you are spared being treated by that baseline of violence. I mean, it's remarkable. It's really remarkable. I mean, you can look at what they will usually say when you level this accusation against them. They'll say, every society is like that.
Yeah.
Every society has been violent. Every empire has been violent. Every so-called great civilization, great nation, or what have you, they've all been guilty of massacres and violence and so forth. Yeah, okay. Within reason. Within reason. I was talking. I did a clip the other, I don't know, a few weeks ago, where I was talking about, one of their favorite ones is to talk about the Muslims and so-called Islam spreading by the sword and so on, and Islam being this violent religion and so forth. If you look at the actual historical records, and now bear in mind that even the death tolls that are attributed to battles in those periods of time are generally exaggerated, because you can't really rely on the numbers, and they're usually inflated for one reason or another. But if you total all of the non-Muslims who've been killed or were killed through Muslim expansion, through wars, through everything, even all the way, including all the way up to 9/11, if you in fact attribute that to Muslims, you're looking at between 15 to 25 million people in the course of 1,400 years have been killed, non-Muslims killed by Muslims. Okay, that's a drop in the bucket for the West. They've killed more than that since 2000, since the year 2000. They've done more than that just in my lifetime, much less 1,400 years. In 500 years, which is like a third of that time, they killed over 300 million people. This is abnormal. This is abnormal for the human race, but it's absolutely baseline for them. I mean, I think you can go into all sorts of reasons for that, how they developed, or that's a generous term, I suppose, how they mutated from what you could assume was the same starting place as everyone else in primordial history. How and why they developed this this baseline attitude of violence and acquisition as being their core traits, and that this is applied to anyone and everyone, including their own people, because they were violent and barbarous towards themselves and towards each other before they ever learned how to get on boats and go elsewhere and do it to other people. This is absolutely how they've always been. So I mean, it's not even a question of them normalizing it. If you feel that they are, like in America now, for example, if you feel that they're normalizing it, then you are one of the people who's just like what I was talking about in that video. You have amnesia. You've been roofied because you don't remember what happened yesterday and before yesterday and last week and last month and 200 years ago, because they've only ever been this way. And they just keep doing it to you over and over again. And maybe if you're starting to think that they're normalizing it, then you're just starting to become aware that they have this quality and they have this trait, this approach to life, this approach to society, this approach to human relations, because it's nothing new at all. It's absolutely the way they've always been.
Very well said. And the biggest trick that they pull on Americans, because it's very important in order for them to sell their violence, they and justify their violence, they always project their traits onto their enemies. The same way that they projected the idea that Muslims was violent extremists, because I was in school, I was a teenager during 9/11 and the war on terror. And I still vividly remember, I think a lot of Gen Zers don't know, but I still vividly remember the wave of anti-Muslim hatred that spread throughout this country after 9/11, the flag thumping, truck drivers, and pretty much the general fever for war, because they presented Muslims as uniquely barbaric. The same way they present blacks as uniquely barbaric. And you're 100% right. I probably should have framed it a little bit differently, because Gaza has me shooken witnessing what they're doing to children. But please remember that this is what the United States and the West did to Vietnam as well. Especially once they realized they couldn't defeat the Viet Cong. They started dropping napalm and destroyed the miracle that was the Vietnamese forest and ecosystem, committed the greatest act of eco-genocide that we've ever seen in modern history, just because they couldn't win. They went to villages and slaughtered everyone. So you're 100% right. This is the long time history of violence that they engage in to get the way. I want to pass it to Nisa Walker. I want to get your thoughts on what Shahid said and the general violent psychosis that we are seeing coming from the West. Is there anything you want to add, Nisa?
Absolutely. When it comes to the way that the United States of America has behaved across the globe, we're not just talking about Vietnam or Gaza, or it's not just a handful of countries. There are so many more. We're talking about Haiti. We're talking about the Philippines. We're talking about Nicaragua. We're talking about South Africa. We're talking to this day, something very recent where they are undermining the current government. Those are all, besides the fact that it's brutal and the act is disgusting, it is all against the charter, the principles of the United Nations Charter. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But my point that I'm trying to make is that United States has not left most countries in peace. Like 99% of the countries are not in peace, and that is because of the United States of America. And it's not just for the fact of just causing unrest. It's all because they want to plunder the resources, whatever it is that they want out of that country for their own benefit. And it doesn't even go to the citizens of the United States of America, like you or any normal person. It is actually just for a handful that is sitting in Congress. It is all for the oligarchs. It's for the capitalists that just want to put that resources within their own pockets. So when they talk generational wealth, they don't mean you need to be the one that is teaching your offspring how to build wealth. No, they mean you are making generational wealth for them. They use the resources of of your country. For example, the military that goes into various the regions and commit these crimes with impunity and just cause havoc. The worst part about that is that these are soldiers or military personnel, they feel that what they are doing is the correct thing. And that speaks about the mindset that is instilled within, your ordinary people in your education system, that makes them think that it is okay for what the country has been doing. I mean, I read a bio of some person. I don't even want to mention his name, and he's got this long list of what he loves about America. A black man, and the one thing he says is he is so grateful for the past wars of the United States of America. And it's like, have you no shame? Do you understand what war means? Do you understand that when they drop bombs, they don't care that it is some baby laying there? They're just dropping those bombs, and whoever is there will be the target. It's just random people, and they don't care. And the worst part is, if it's white people, they would be more cautious than when it is any other person of color. That is what the main thing is. As long as you are not white, and also only a certain class of white, there's still that also when it comes to their racism and that type of things. Not every white person has the privilege of being in their inner circle. So that's my 2 cents about the violence that they
That's very
spread
well
across.
said. It's very well said,
Sorry?
because I actually love talking to my Midwest brothers and sisters, and many of these poor white people who mind is still colonized, because the United States and the West, they stole trillions from Africa and the global South. And imagine living in a country that has such a violent and criminal history that they steal wealth of other nations, plunder other nations to the tune of trillions, and they still leave your white ass broke. Despite all the money they stole, they left you poor and white, but you're still loyal to the imperialist structure, still loyal to the imperialist machine, despite the fact that the imperialist machine haven't really done anything for you. They steal money and resources from, like I said, Africa, which is why I want to transition to this next topic. I want your guys' thoughts on this, because we are seeing this tradition of resisting colonialism, imperialism. We're seeing the rise of people like Ibrahim Traore in Africa, where many young Africans are looking to him because he expelled the French in the United States from his country. He's standing as this symbol of African freedom, because Africans, as a policy of the West, have been plagued with poverty inflicted by the West, violence that have been funded by the West. So I want to get both your guys' thoughts on the rise of Ibrahim Traore. Is this something that you guys are enthusiastic about? Is it something that you guys have been covering? Let me pass it to Shahid first.
Well, yes, of course, absolutely. I've said it more than once. I think Ibrahim Traore is the most important Muslim leader in the world. He's not just the most important African leader in the world. He's the most important Muslim leader in the world. And I would say he's the most important leader in the world in terms of what he represents and the change that he represents and the paradigm shift that he represents. I mean, there are many, in my opinion, important leaders. Most of them are, well, in fact, I can't think of any that are in the West, actually, but important leaders that are important to the world. Well, I'm not really being sarcastic, or I'm trying to be funny, but because the people who are identified as leaders in the West aren't leaders. Period. The people who are identified as your leaders are effigies, are just poster board cutouts to put up in front of you to make you believe that those are the ones who are making decisions. So it's hard to identify who is a leader in the West. But in the global South and in the Muslim world, we can identify leaders. We have very influential leaders, Mohammed bin Salman, Erdogan, even Mohammed bin Zayed, and so on and so on. We have many, strong, or in South Africa, for example, Naledi Pandor is a leader, even though she's retired from office. So we have actual people that we can identify. And among all of the people who we can identify who are actual leaders, who have real power and influence officially, formally, I don't think there's anyone who is more important than Ibrahim Traore, President Ibrahim Traore. Because of, I mean, and he's within the Sahel, he's within the Sahel alliance. So you have Mali and Niger as well. You have also a very promising leader developing or emerging in Senegal. but the standard bearer of anti-colonization, anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism, who's carrying the flag of Thomas Sankara, Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, the one who's really carrying that banner right now, openly, with his chest out, is Ibrahim Traore. And he's making very practical, astonishing decisions in his country to great effect on the ground and quickly. The opening of factories, the opening of schools, the opening of hospitals, getting laboratories for universities. Very practical measures that are changing not just the today of Burkina Faso, but the tomorrow and the future generations, as well as obviously the incredibly important step that everyone thought was impossible, kicking the French out and kicking foreign troops out. This was unthinkable just 3 years ago, 4 years ago. No one could have thought that that could happen, and he just did it, and it was done. I mean, I saw I think it was the president of Botswana who was talking about the fact that Ibrahim Traore, you can't take him in a vacuum. You have to look at him within the context of the Burkinabe people, which is where he draws his power, really. Because when he says a thing, they do it. There is complete loyalty and commitment between the leader and the people and the people and the leader. And this is what is really empowering him. And it's really what is protecting him. Because there have been, as you know, multiple attempts on his life. There have been multiple attempts to organize coups against him, all of which have been foiled, all of which have been halted, all of which have been found out. And you literally have Burkinabe people sleeping in the streets outside the presidential palace, just in case anybody tries anything in the middle of the night. This is how much that man is loved. And he's loved because of what he's doing for his people and because they believe him. And because they love him, he's able to do what he's doing. So this is a remarkable person. This is you don't often see in your lifetime. You usually see in retrospect who are the really important leaders who change the world. You usually don't know that until in retrospect. But we're actually living right now at a time when we have someone on this earth, we have someone in Africa who is literally changing the course of history by what he's doing. And may Allah protect him.
Yeah, and I was talking to David Hadayan, a prominent investigative journalist in Africa, and we was talking about this, and because the West wants Traore dead, and I have been scared for Traore. We have seen multiple attempts on his life. We have seen the traitorous president of the Ivory Coast, who's in bed with the United States. He hosted Michael Lanley, the U.S. AFRICOM general, the Black American who is there to impose Western imperialism on his Black brothers and sisters. They use a blackface for that. He just met with the president of Ivory Coast, who is sheltering terrorists who attempted to kill Ibrahim Traore. Because we know there are many Western sellout African leaders that would love to see Traore killed, and because he's very inconvenient to them. And I'm worried because they obviously hashing this plan to murder Traore. But my friend David Hadayan, he explained to me, and trust me, it would be 100% tragic, and we all hope it doesn't happen. But at this point, Traore is such a powerful icon that if they ever did, once again, God forbid, ever did something to him and they were successful, it would unleash a wave. Like at this point, it's too late. Maybe you guys can disagree with me, but I think David made this point as well. I think it's too late now because even if they killed him, it would send a message that they were forced to. They were forced to kill him because the symbol that he posed, in contrast to people like William Ruto, for example, who is sending his police officers against the will of his Supreme Court. He is disobeying a Supreme Court order to send police officers to Haiti, and they were getting smoked. They were getting smoked in Haiti. But that's just for example how Africans tend to be puppets of the West, and Traore is having none of it. But Nisa, I want to pass it to you. I know you probably have thoughts as well. I know you do a lot of writing on South Africa, so I'm very interested in your perspective on on the rise of Traore and the African response to it.
Thank you so much, Nick. So I echo Brother Shahid's statements with regards to Ibrahim Traore. Actually, we at Middle Nation had a conversation about him more than a year ago. So we have been speaking about him. We've identified even then already, this is some leader that will make a change. And like you say, even though his life is in danger, if the United States of America does ever, or the West, whoever, succeeds in eliminating him at some point, but his impact has been made already. Firstly, his people, the way that they are protecting him shows that even though that is just the Burkinabe people, we can see the same sentiments in South Africa, in Kenya, in Nigeria, in United States of America, in Europe, those that want to see a real change that might not even have roots in Africa, but understand that these are human, human lives, and those are important. They already know, people already understand and feel inspired by his actions and the way that he leads his country and the way that he loves his people. So it doesn't matter what they try and do or what they do think that will get right. It won't work because we are seeing a shift globally where people are no longer taking what systems and organizations and governments are doing to them. They're not allowing those things to happen to them anymore. They're standing up. Burkinabe people are showing that this is a leader that we want and we will protect him. And that is exactly what the rest of the world will do in any case. They will stand up against it. Now, that doesn't mean that we're saying that there will be a riot or that type of thing. No, they will act whichever way would be suitable to fighting against, taking out an important leader like him. And there are other leaders that are busy emerging that we haven't heard of yet. It is happening. He's inspired people. The world is changing. So he is an inspiration, especially to the people of Africa because we feel it. But he's also an inspiration to Asia, to the United States of America, to the citizens. Yeah, he's an inspiration.
Yeah. The African diaspora all around the world is rallying behind Traore. And anyone who's been a victim of United States imperialism or want to see United States imperialism defeated is rooting for Traore. We've seen recently with Putin and Traore developing a relationship with many people who I'm a natural optimist. So I'm seeing like the world realizing the scam of having the United States as a centralized power that everyone bows to, and seeing this trend. And Shahid, I want you to react to this. The Western media, in response to Traore, has been engaged in the same kind of disgusting smears that you could imagine. The panic narrative, the desperate attempt to control the narrative. And you have all these, and not even just neocons, because obviously this is the Council of Foreign Relations, but there's like all these corporate media headlines meant to demonize Traore and his supporters. For example, look, this is what the messaging of the establishment is, that there is a cult being formed around Ibrahim Traore because God forbid anyone support a free African movement. And in order to respond to this, you have these imperialists in the West that is accusing Africans of being stupid. They accuse Africans of being stupid and easily manipulated by Russia. Look at this. Disinformation fuels support for Burkina Faso junta leader in Nigeria. And let me pull this article up as well. The same strategy they've been using over the last decade, now that the United States support in Africa is beginning to fall. Look at this. Russian propaganda, how Moscow uses disinformation in Africa. And they were tying all this together in the West, and you see this in BBC, to accuse the Ibrahim Traore movement of being shills of Russian disinformation. So that's how the Western media is coping with this. Shahid, is there anything you want to respond to? Anything else you want to add before we move on?
Well, I mean, a few things. First of all, who they're talking to isn't who they have to worry about. So they're not changing anyone's minds that matter with regards to Ibrahim Traore. The audience for those articles and for that media already doesn't support Ibrahim Traore. Already is generally speaking Western supremacist, white supremacist, anti-African. Uh, uh, the people who do support Ibrahim Traore, the people who are anti-imperialist, the people of Burkina Faso, the people of Africa, the people of the global South, are not paying attention to what you're saying. You're not changing anyone's mind. So it's really irrelevant. This is an interesting thing that has developed with regards to the mainstream so-called legacy media, uh, which is that you don't have a hold on the people's minds anymore, on the majority of the populations anymore, even in your own lands, even in your own countries. No one is really relying on you for information anymore. No one's opinions are really being formed by you anymore. Everyone is getting their news from TikTok, from Twitter, from YouTube, from all of these other social media platforms and other independent media sources on the internet, even on Telegram and so forth. So no one is really getting their news from the mainstream media. The mainstream media is just telling us what a very small pocket of basically elite opinion is. So, I mean, if you're talking about, it's quite obviously it's funny for Americans to talk about a cult forming around Ibrahim Traore when you have Trump as your president,
Yeah.
which is absolutely a personality cult by any definition, even by his own admission. The man is putting out pictures of himself as the Pope. What can you do with that? This is an absolute narcissistic buffoon. And his people are all around him, regardless. And he himself said it. Remember in his first campaign back in 2016, when he said, "I could." What did he say? I could actually kill somebody in the street and they still vote for me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the definition of a personality cult in the extreme. Meanwhile, you're talking about people in Burkina Faso developing a love for the man who is helping them, for the man who is actually changing their lives for the better. And that's the development of a cult. Okay, whatever you say. But who you're talking to is their opinion is irrelevant with regards to global opinion, particularly about Africa, particularly about Burkina Faso, particularly about Ibrahim Traore. Now, I would say one other thing with regards to the real fear that something could happen to him, that the West could try to do something against him, as they have tried. This isn't 1965. It's not 1975. It's not 1985. The world has changed. Power dynamics have changed. The agenda of the owners and controllers of global financialized capital in the world has changed. BRICS exist. There's a shift of the global economy to the south and to the east. The centers of gravity of the global economy are moving out of the West, out of America. So I think that the time is right for an Ibrahim Traore, for the Sahel Alliance, for Senegal, for all of Africa, for all of the global South to rise, and to be safe in doing so. It doesn't mean that they can be haphazard about it, reckless about it, because also old habits die hard for America and for the West. And like we began our conversation, their baseline is violence. Their baseline is that every human being, regardless of their location, regardless of their race, regardless of their religion, regardless of their nationality, and so on, the base assumption on their side for all human beings is that they are eligible for murder. They're eligible for elimination. And you have to do something to prove that you are eligible to continue living and to be dealt with in a decent manner. The baseline position for them is elimination, rape, pillage, murder. That's their baseline. So you have to do something to prove that you're worthy of that not happening to you. Now that doesn't mean that you prove that you're a good person. They could care less about that. That can mean that it proves that you have wealth. It can also mean that you have wealth and you're willing to do business with them. It can also mean that it is too dangerous to do anything to you. And I think that in the case of Ibrahim Traore, he is engaging with Russia, he's engaging with China, he's engaging with Turkey, all of whom are obviously involved with BRICS, all of whom are involved with what I refer to as the eight national owners and controllers of global financialized capital, that segment of the financial elite who are no longer nationalistic in their thinking, who have transcended the boundaries of nation states. So he may have, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, he may have some protection with regards to that. Because it's not as if Burkina Faso is saying we're not going to engage with the so-called global economy anymore, we're going to be isolationist and so forth. He's not doing that. He is continuing to engage in trade and investment deals and so forth for Burkina Faso. It's just not going to the benefit of America specifically, or France specifically, for example. Well, if you're dealing with a national owners and controllers of global financialized capital who couldn't care less where the money flows geographically, as long as it flows into their portfolios, as long as it flows into their share prices, then you might have some protection there. So I think that while there is certainly a threat against him, there's certainly some danger that he is facing, and we're all worried for him. I also believe that he is safer than had he done this 30 years ago. Had he existed 30 years ago. And we all know that already to be the case because of Thomas Sankara. So we already know that the time is different just because he exists and he continues to exist. That shows that there is some difference has taken place in the global power dynamics.
Yeah, I'm greatly enjoying this stream. It's great to hear from you guys' perspective. If you guys are up early in the morning with us, or if you're watching the replay and you join the stream, please like and share. We gotta share. We gotta spread the message of Mill Nation to as many people as possible. So I hope you guys enjoying the stream. I'm up early, so I don't know where you guys are at, but it's early where I'm at. I'm greatly enjoying this conversation. Nisa, I want to get your last thoughts on Traore, but I've been paying attention to what many of these sellout African diaspora journalists have been writing, and this one particularly I thought was just simply funny. There are all these sellout African journalists who do nothing but spread lies and normalize Western propaganda among their people. And there's just one of them where he said that Ibrahim Traore is popular, but he's a bad man who doesn't like criticism. And criticism of Traore has simply become sacrilege. So here's a sellout African journalist who is complaining that every time he tries to character assassinate Ibrahim Traore spreading Western talk points, this is the guy, this is the fuck. He like this the code of Traore. This is the only talking point they have. Dude, just to accuse people of supporting Traore of being a cult. Meanwhile, once again, he has no criticism of people like William Ruto. This is what these African diaspora propagandists, this is what they do. They will attack Traore and anyone the West hates while leaving. Well, actually, let me correct myself. They wouldn't leave William Ruto alone. They would pretend that he's a great liberal, freedom-loving leader. So they straight up lie. William Ruto is in defiance of his Supreme Court, by the way, sending his people to die for a U.S. project in Haiti. Meanwhile, this scumbag has no criticism of him. But he's upset because he's been taking a lot of pushback, and he failed to convince the Africa diaspora in France that Ibrahim Traore is bad. Meanwhile, I just want to show you that. I love the cope. A lot of these people who are used to getting away with the lies are being checked in a way they're not used to being checked because so many people have access to information. There's so many, especially young Africans who are seeing through the propaganda. But Nisa, I'll give you last thoughts on Burkina Faso. Any other thoughts you have you want to add to this before we move on?
Sure. With regards to this, just shows you the fact that an African man is spreading misinformation, disinformation, propaganda on behalf of the West means, and it just proves that the West still hasn't updated their playbook. That man might be black, But you find pundits and you find these people that spread this information in all countries, in all colors and that type of thing, and we're always shocked at the fact that how can you do this to your own people? And it's just because of the mere fact that he is not hungry, but his brother next door is hungry. He's being paid for those things and he has no conscience, and that is because his education system has taught him that he is lesser than, and the only way that he can be good or worthy of anything is by putting down somebody that is doing something. So he has a Western mindset, and I actually feel sorry for those type of people to a certain degree, but also not, because we're living in a technology age, we're living in information age where he should be able to see, he should be able to read the room and understand that people do see through those lies. But it still comes down to the same thing where the West thinks that they can still get away with these narratives, but the people are not even listening to those type of people. They will eventually either just move on or whatever. As long as they will keep writing, as long as the check doesn't run dry and the checks keep coming, they will keep doing that. That's all that it is for them. Unfortunately, their conscience right now is they don't feel anything about it. At some point, they will feel it.
Yeah, and I know it seems obvious to us, but the West deploys these people to convince supporters of imperialism, white people, that they're doing the right thing. So you see this African reporter, he's against Traore. You see Gordon Chang on Fox News, he hates China. They have Chinese Americans who are the most rabid anti-China hawks that you will find. You will see all these sellout people who would promote war against their own countries in Africa. They're from that, they live in the West. They now got a job at the Washington Post, and they're here to explain to you why South Africa is a bad country. We need to sanction. That it's a very powerful strategy today. I know we roll our eyes at it, but they use it to sell war and conflict to their population. Shahid, I saw you on mute. Do you want to chime in?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I would just say that you have to also bear in mind, no one is listening to these people who matters. I understand that, and this is sort of what Nisa was hinting at as well, which is that they haven't updated their playbook. You are still represents sort of the military-industrial complex faction, the neocon faction. Neocons are sort of the political representatives of the military-industrial complex. Okay, this is the faction of power that is in decline globally in terms of their influence, and no one is listening to you with regards to your opinion about Ibrahim Traore. This is what I was saying. This is a propaganda tool that would have worked when people used to listen to you, but people don't listen to you anymore, and you haven't adjusted to that reality, and you don't know how to deal with that reality. And it doesn't matter. It's fine. You don't have to know how to deal with that reality. We would rather you not. But you are in an obsolete paradigm where you still think anyone cares what the Washington Post says about Ibrahim Traore. No one in America cares about it. No one cares in Burkina Faso about it. No one cares in Africa about it. Most people are not even, if you're talking about the people of Burkina Faso, they're not checking English news anyway. No one knows what is being said in the English language. No one cares. It's already taken as a given that this is propaganda and misinformation. And I think I wanted to say another point about this, which is this is basically, it amounts to an ad hominem attack on Ibrahim Traore, not any sort of a dispute about his policies or his impact or his positive outcomes. If you can't say anything about that, all you can do is say he doesn't like criticism. Well, maybe if you look at his outcomes, at his positive outcomes, at his victories, at his success, you would understand why, because there's nothing to criticize. So if you're criticizing and he's rejecting that criticism, it's because this is baseless criticism, and it's just for the purpose of trying to tear the man down. You're actually criticizing him because of his success. You're criticizing him because of his victories. You're criticizing him because of the changes that he's making, the positive changes that he's making in Burkina Faso, and the fact that his people love him, you know, and it also reflects the tendency of the West, the tendency of Americans to universalize their priority system, that everyone should prioritize what they think is important, even though the irony is always that they don't actually consider it important in their own country. The example here being so-called free speech, or the right to criticize your government or criticize your leader. If your leader is doing a good job, now this is going to be a shock maybe to Americans, because you're not used to a leader who does a good job. I don't think anyone who's alive today has any experience in that. But in the global South, we have experience with leaders who do a good job, and with leaders who actually see to the needs of their people. And I'm not just talking about the Muslim world, and I'm not just talking about Ibrahim Traore. I'm not even talking about great leaders. There are many leaders. For example, say Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, who's passed now, but in the past, Lee Kuan Yew, even the government of Singapore now, completely mediocre by the standards of Singaporean government, or the government of Malaysia, for example, on and on and on. You actually have governments that do try to see to the needs of their people, despite what America thinks, despite what Bill O'Reilly may think about Malaysia. And no one is interested in, okay, they're seeing to my needs, they're helping me, my life is relatively comfortable, I have opportunities, but I just wish I could criticize the government, though. No one feels that way. But you think that the fact that in your mind, you think that you can't criticize the government just because no one is criticizing the government. Maybe they have nothing to criticize. Did you ever consider that possibility? Maybe the people are actually content with what their government is doing. I know this is, again, a completely alien experience for you. It's not something that anyone in America could ever relate to, the idea that their government is actually seeing to their needs and actually doing things that they could be proud of and making their life better. No one has any experience in that. So you have plenty to criticize. But maybe it's possible that there are countries in the world where the people are actually satisfied with their governments. And maybe the reason that they're not criticizing their government isn't because they're being suppressed or repressed or oppressed. It's because they're happy. That's actually a thing that can happen in the world.
Yeah, that's such a great point that you're making, because the American government weaponized our well-founded distrust of our government and project the failures that our government has onto other countries. And then they accuse their enemies of rigging democracy because 80% of the people in China, and that's a low number, support Xi Jinping and the Chinese government. Where we have Vladimir Putin, who has around an 85% approval rating. So then American exceptionalists will turn around and they will convince, and they will believe them when they tell them that Russian democracy is rigged. Because there's no way that Vladimir Putin can ever get 90% of the vote. Because remember, in the United States, our Congress has a 13% approval rating, my friends. 13%. A government that doesn't even pretend to support the people. So what Americans think, they like, there's no way that the Russian people are actually satisfied with the people, with their country. It must be Russian authoritarianism. It must be rigging of polls. And that's how they convince people that these countries that actually work for the people must be inherently corrupt. The people of North Korea support their government and their parliamentary system. They support the Kim family because the Kim family was fighting against United States imperialism, provided free housing, free education to their people, despite crippling sanctions. So is the North Korea government perfect? Who the fuck am I to say if they're perfect or not? But the people see a family, they see a government that is fighting for their sovereignty and for their material needs while under siege by the West. So then when people from the West sees that the North Korean people are dedicated to the vision of their government, they can't even comprehend that. So they assume that the Kim family in North Korea must have this iron-like grip on their people, and that's how they're able to spread the propaganda. But anyway, very thought-provoking rant. I have one more topic I'll bring up for today. For a second time, I always enjoy our talks I have with you guys. I appreciate you guys for joining us once again. For a second time, I have plenty that we could discuss, but for a second time, let's end it with this. Since we are talking about the theme of sellout leaders, be like Ibrahim Traore. Do not be like Muslim Zionists like Jelani in Syria. And I want to get your guys' thoughts on this because I've been covering this story closely. And it was very tragic to see the Free Palestine movement cheer on the fall of Assad. Not saying that Assad was perfect, but it was very sad to see the pro-Palestine movement take this obvious psyop, which was this Syrian revolution led by Muslim Zionists who just want nothing but normalization with Israel. So Israel has seized Syrian land. They still in their wheat, they're still in their water supply, and they have engaged in hostilities against the Syrian people. But Jelani is so focused on cracking down and killing his own people that he allowed Israel and the United States to get away with their sins. And he is now advocating for normalized ties and friendly relationships with Israel after everything the West and Israel has done to its country. So this will be our last topic because there's still so much to cover, but we ended up with this. I want to get your guys' take on what is going on in Syria and how the resistance have been crippled in a lot of ways because of what Jelani leadership is doing in Syria. Do you guys have take? Do you guys agree with that? Disagree with that? What are your guys' thoughts? Shahid and Nisa. We start with Shahid.
Okay. That's a completely wrong take on your side. It's a completely wrong take. The Assad government was not a resistance government at all. Iran has not been a resistance government at all in reality. The Jolani government or the Shara government was placed into power by the coordinated cooperation of Russia, Iran, China, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. This was all of the powers, and even America, to a certain extent, had approval of that, and that has to do with the fact that America is no longer run by the nationalistic OCGFC; it's being run by the a-nationalistic OCGFC, which is the party or the faction of power, which I said is no longer attached to the nation state, is no longer attached to the military-industrial complex. The military-industrial complex is beneath them. They have a plan for the Middle East. You can like it or not like it, but their plan for the Middle East is stability. Their plan for the Middle East is stability and security and development, which means that the conflicts cannot continue indefinitely. That is disruptive to their plans for the region. That includes, obviously, the war in Syria. It includes the genocide in Gaza and West Bank expansionism and so forth. All of this is included in things that have to go away, which also means all resistance groups have to go away. All militant groups have to go away. That includes Hamas. It includes Hezbollah. It includes ultimately the Houthis, unless they can make some kind of a deal for some sort of coalition government or ruling alongside of Saudi appointees. But all of these, all militancy in the region is going to have to be eliminated. And this is by a consensus of all of the regional players. And it's by a consensus of, in my opinion, BRICS, that they want to see, and by the A-National OCGFC. And you can shorten the A-National OCGFC to BlackRock if you like. Makes it easier. But that's a simplification. BlackRock is working with BRICS. BlackRock is working with Saudi Arabia. They're working with the UAE, and they're working to one degree or another with Russia and China. But their intermediaries with Russia and China are really the Gulf states. And as I say, their plan for the region is stability. And Syria is now going to be sort of a protectorate that is controlled by half a dozen regional hegemons. And that is going to be stabilized. Sharia is not important. He's not actually the leader. He's more of a governor. I don't like this portrayal of that they are Zionists. Where's the proof that they're Zionists? That they're being attacked?
How are they not?
How
How are they not Zionists? So
How
Israel did
are they
everything.
Zionists?
Why are they trying to seek normalization? You had Israel, who was cheering the downfall of Assad, who was facilitating weapons to the resistance, and now you have Israel that's occupying Syria, and the focus of Jelani, as they're being invaded by Israel, is to kill Syrians instead of fighting the Israeli resistance.
You understand
because he
that
did exactly what the
you
West wanted
understand
to
that
do. Because
you understand that the
Syria
Israelis are the
was
ones who are
already
trying to
weakened.
incite the Druze.
Syria was already weakened by Western sanctions. So why would you have a revolution when your country is weakened and can't defend itself from the main enemy? And now the same
Now,
people trying to seek normalization. What you're saying inherently doesn't make sense, sir. I'm sorry.
okay, now you're mixing the topic with regards to the original revolution and what happened with the rise of Sharia in taking over the government.
And now
Those are
U.S.
two
going to
different things.
occupy Syria. How is that a good thing?
Sorry,
I sincerely don't understand how that
Syria.
leads to
You
peace.
understand that Israel has been occupying in Syria for over
Yeah,
30
and
years.
now they 100% okay with it though. Now they're okay with it. Now they want to make deals with it with Syria. This is why the
Do you
Israeli
think that
regime, the
do
West
you think that
supported
violence
all
and
this
war is
stuff.
better than negotiation?
Sorry,
Do you think that violence and war is better than negotiation? Is that preferable?
they engage in violence and war against their own people, the Jelani regime. Instead of confronting, and this is my criticism. Instead of confronting the Zionist regime that is stealing their water, occupying their land, why will you be focusing on attacking and killing your own people? Why seeking normalization with the enemy? That's what I don't understand.
You don't understand the necessity of stabilizing your own government.
It's not stable. How is Syria stable right now?
Well, how is it not stable, except by means of American and Israeli subversion through the Druze communities and the minority communities in the
That
Shia?
doesn't sound stable to me. That does not sound stable to me.
And it
How is
needs
that
to be
stable?
stabilized.
Syria is not being stabilized. It's been unstable because the CIA was propping up resistance groups that were designed to weaken the Syrian government so Israel can stroll in the same way they have. Is there something you disagree with that about?
As I said, you're talking about the initial civil war was that's something different than what we're talking about in 2025. The initial civil war had its own rationale, had its own motives, had its own uh, how to say its own context at that time. I disagreed with it at that time. I disagreed with it throughout the civil war. I don't disagree at all with the removal of Bashar al-Assad, and I don't disagree at all with the. Excuse me.
It's not going great for the Syrian people. I don't understand when you have.
Where are you getting your information about the Syrian people's position? I'm getting it from Syrians.
Yeah, I'm getting it with Syrians who are upset that the Jelani regime is not only they're failing to do anything about Israel, they're begging for normalization.
You're getting your information from pro-Bashar al-Assad factions within Syria, as opposed to the majority.
Sorry?
So you're getting your information from pro-Assad sources in Syria, as opposed to the majority of the citizens.
They're not even pro-Assad. Like many of these people have criticism of Assad. It was just horrific strategic maneuvering by people who was misled by the West, which led to a weakened Syrian government, which allowed Israel to steamroll them. Right?
I don't see that they're being steamrolled. I see that that Syria, as I said, has been more or less taken over by half a dozen countries whose overall plan is for stability in the region.
Okay. Anything else you want to add regarding Syria? Nisa, anything you agree or disagree about? Because we're about an hour and we can move on. Any final thoughts, Nisa?
Final thoughts with regards to Israel specifically. I think everybody needs to remember that Israel is a colonial project of the United States of America, and the United States of America is the one that is ensuring and funding this genocide, especially in Gaza. You can see the way that they act across the globe, and that is why our campaign, our Article 6 campaign, calls for the expulsion of the United States of America from the United Nations, because the way to hold America accountable for causing instability for decades across the globe is by removing them from the organization that is meant to be upholding peace and security across the globe. And America gets away with crimes for all these decades because they've corrupted United Nations. So the best thing, legal mechanism, is Article 6. So your audience, if we could ask them, please, we have a petition on change.org. Please go to the petition, to the website, change.org, search for expel USA from UN, and please sign the petition, share it. For those pro-Palestinian, MPs, members of parliament, congressmen, your representatives, please get them to back this campaign, because the United States of America, the citizens, those peace-loving citizens, are affected, and you do have recourse under international law. Even though you are American, it doesn't mean international law means not American. It means that me as an American or you as an American have recourse under international law, and the United Nations Charter works for every single person on this globe. And it's time that we see that these organizations, or especially these governments that abuse their power, that they are held accountable for and not just stop it, but held accountable for their actions. So that's my last thoughts on today's show. Thank you so much.
Make sure you guys support their Expel US for the UN petition. Shahid, I want to pass to you. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to promote? Anything coming up on Middle Nation? I'll give you final thoughts, because I didn't want to keep you any longer than an hour. Make sure you guys follow Shahid Bolsen and the work at Middle Nation. Any final thoughts?
No, thanks. I really appreciate you having us on. I appreciate the exposure, and I appreciate being able to discuss all of these issues with you. I appreciate your time and your audience's time. So thanks so much for the opportunity and for the invite.
Yeah, 100%. Make sure you guys support Middle Nation. I 100% appreciate all you guys' contributions and your analysis. So make sure you guys check out Shahid and check out Middle Nation. Thank you guys thanks for joining. I want to keep this one an hour because it's very early. So I want to keep this one an hour. Hope you guys enjoyed this 1 hour conversation, RBN and Middle Nation. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good rest of your day, guys. Take care.